She's 40, and still looks stunning. Every now and then, she puts on black stockings and waits for her husband to come home. In her eyes, she's the happiest woman alive. She won't even let the family photo sit slightly crooked. Perfection means everything to her. But she never saw how far her husband had strayed. On the surface, he adored her, spoiling her like a princess. But beneath the charm, he hid guilt she never suspected. Maybe it was his background in directing. His lies felt like love, his smile a performance. He even gave her a scarf, but that scarf would soon unravel the truth. She believed in his love so deeply, they never even hid their affection from their son at breakfast. She was sure he'd come home no matter what, rain or shine. She wasn't just a housewife, she was a vice president at a hospital. Confident. Sharp. But one day, a strange feeling hit her, and everything began to crack. There was a hair on her scarf, long brown, and definitely not hers. She picked it up slowly, examining it with rising suspicion. 2 days earlier, while arranging her husband's clothes, a lipstick had fallen from his jacket. But he didn't flinch, just smiled and claimed it was a lip balm he accidentally bought for his dry lips. She had laughed at the mix-up, even teased him for being clueless. Her husband felt lucky. He thought he had a foolish wife. But there's no such thing as a foolish woman, just one who hasn't caught on yet. And now, the signs were too clear for even the most trusting heart to ignore. When she picked up her son from school, her eyes scanned every man with brown hair. Still, she kept telling herself it was nothing, just a misunderstanding. But then, as she waited, a woman approached her. It was her husband's secretary. She thanked her for helping her husband get her the job. "It's hard finding work after divorce," she smiled. The wife, puzzled, asked, "Don't you finish at 7? The secretary blinked. "No, the office closes at 5. But her husband always came home at exactly 7:30, every single night. More punctual than any clock. She didn't confront her husband right away. She wasn't completely sure. The last thing she wanted was to humiliate their relationship without proof. But now, she needed certainty. What she didn't know was that her son had already sensed something was off with his mother. And like most smart kids, he carried the weight of what he noticed. Quietly, he packed some bone soup for his girlfriend. She had no idea her best friend was also starting to feel suspicious. That day, the wife casually asked her friend, "Will dyeing your hair brown make it fall out?" Her friend shrugged, saying it might fall out either way, but added confidently, "This color makes me look completely different." The wife nodded, then dropped a hint. "Lately, my husband's been coming home, completely drained. Did yours say anything strange when he came back?" Later that evening, she eyed her husband's phone. Should she check it? Would he notice? But then he walked in, and headed to the shower, leaving the phone behind. That was strange. Stranger still, there was no password. Driven by instinct, she picked it up. It was spotless. Too spotless. Just as she was about to put it down, a message popped up, order confirmed. Roses, 8 p.m. pickup. Her heart sank. Those flowers weren't for her. The next day, she followed him in secret, and saw him pull into a flower shop. But just then, a couple nearby got into a fight. They slammed the man against the hood of her car. She froze, because she recognized the girl. And the girl recognized the man. The next moment, the man grabbed the girl and tried to drag her away. She broke free and shouted to the wife, "Help me. He's a doctor, I know who he is." And suddenly, everything came crashing down. The woman wasn't just a wife, she was a doctor, and a responsible one at that. Now, sitting in her car, watching the same woman being dragged during an argument, the doctor felt the urge to step out and help. But just then, her husband walked out of the flower shop. Her focus shifted, she needed answers. She cast one last glance at the scene and decided it was just a quarrel between a couple. Why would her husband be buying flowers? Who were they really for? She followed him, heart pounding, until he turned into the nursing home. Her breath caught. His mother lived there. She took a deep breath, fixed her expression, and walked in. Her mother-in-law, wise despite her age, welcomed her warmly, thanking her for the visit. But she wasn't fooled. She'd already seen the flowers on the table and knew something wasn't right. Quietly, she found an excuse to remove them from sight. The husband saw the look in his wife's eyes and knew she was doubting him. He had to say something, to calm her. As he entered the room, he smiled and said warmly, "Thank you for coming to see Mom." And for a moment, the wife began to doubt herself. Maybe she'd misunderstood everything. The wife gently asked, "Is this where you always go when you're late?" Her husband smiled. "Where else would I be for 2 hours?" The message was clear. He visited his mother daily. He just didn't want to worry her about her health. Guilt washed over the wife. How could she doubt him? But when she stopped by the nurse's station to ask for a vase, a nurse smiled and thanked them for visiting. The old lady's mood is much better now. It helps us too. Then came the unsettling truth. She's been asking for her son for months. Said he hasn't come in ages. Her heart froze. He had lied. Later, the mother asked her son, "What happened to you?" But he didn't know the truth, that she was slowly dying, neglected by their hands. That night, the wife pretended to read, waiting for the right moment to speak. But just then, her husband said he had a business meeting, something about finding sponsors. He casually mentioned the chairman of the board might be there. The wife quickly offered, "Let's go together." His wife invited me too. She wasn't sure if that was true, but he agreed. At the party, his eyes were fixed on one person, the chairman. He'd rehearsed his introduction for days. Mustering courage, he stepped forward and bowed, introducing himself. But the chairman didn't even glance at him. The moment stung. Embarrassed, he stepped back. His wife saw it all. Calmly, she approached the chairman's wife, offered her warm congratulations, and introduced herself confidently as the hospital's vice president. The chairman smiled and thanked her. Then she turned to her husband. "This is my husband. He runs an entertainment company that produces films." In that moment, she stood tall. And he stood in her shadow. She asked her husband to help manage her company, and through the chairman's introduction, he was soon shaking hands with influential men who already knew his name. Then, from across the room, she spotted someone familiar, a waitress. The same woman from that day. The wife approached her, apologizing for not helping her during the struggle. The waitress smiled politely but had a request. She needed sleeping pills. The wife sighed. She too had been relying on them lately. Her suspicions about her husband's affair were eating away at her. The waitress leaned in with a sudden idea. "I can help you." She knew the wife worked long hours at the hospital, which gave the husband time to sneak around. But what he didn't know was that someone was watching him. The waitress followed him, waited in a car for hours, and finally brought back evidence. Not his face, but a clear shot of his license plate. It confirmed everything. Though she thought she was prepared, the truth still hit her like a blow. So she planned something special, a birthday surprise. That day, she parked at a distance and watched. When a car appeared, she compared it to the photo. It matched. What she didn't expect was that it belonged to the chairman's family. It couldn't be the wife. Then it hit her, it had to be the daughter. She adjusted her thoughts, refocused. With a spare key, she opened her husband's trunk. An attendant had told her he'd been carrying a blue bag. She found it, in a hidden compartment. Inside were her parents, and an adult. She froze. Then whispered, "Monster." She hadn't expected a spare phone, he had one. She had underestimated just how deep this betrayal ran. Her husband was having an affair with the chairman's daughter. But what crushed her even more was discovering that everyone already knew. She had been the fool in their eyes all along. In a wave of rage, she imagined grabbing a scalpel and ending it all, his betrayal, her pain. But it was only in her mind. She knew she couldn't lose control. Not yet. What truly broke her was seeing him, later that day, walking hand in hand with a young girl. Right in front of her. She couldn't understand it. What did that girl see in him? But it didn't matter. Their marriage was beyond saving. That night, filled with fury, she packed a suitcase and prepared to leave. But as she reached the door, her eyes landed on her son's calendar, covered in notes and plans for future trips with his father. She froze. Moments later, her husband stumbled in, drunk and clueless. He didn't notice the suitcase. The next morning, she made breakfast like nothing had changed. Her husband watched her kiss their son. Maybe it stirred guilt, because he suddenly stood up, as if to do the same. But she didn't move. She was holding it together, for her child. At the hospital, fate twisted again. She spotted a young woman in the hallway, one who had just written down her contact information. Curious, the wife glanced at her file, then casually took her arm to draw blood. As a seasoned doctor, she didn't need a lab report to know what it meant. The girl was already pregnant, confirmed it at home, and had deliberately slipped her lipstick into the man's pocket to be found. Her plan was simple: make the wife suspect, then drop the bomb. But the wife didn't flinch. She coldly told the girl, "You're just trash. My husband will never take responsibility." Still, once the girl left, anxiety kicked in. The wife rushed to a bookstore to read up on divorce laws. At the checkout, she noticed something chilling. The girl had picked up baby books. So it was real. What she didn't know was that the girl's boldness came from a promise. The husband had told her he'd divorce his wife soon. He was preparing for the worst. That same day, the wife contacted a lawyer. The advice was clear: if she wanted to walk away with everything, She'd need proof of cheating and a full asset review. She wasted no time and went straight to his company. Posing as a concerned spouse, she asked to see the financial statements. The secretary, assuming she was worried about the company's investments, casually mentioned, "It's lucky you two mortgaged your house for this." The wife smiled politely. But once home, she tore through the financial records. And then the real shock hit her. He had mortgaged their home and emptied their accounts. Even their son's insurance fund was gone. She was chilled to the bone. She never imagined her husband could be this cruel. So now, she wouldn't hold back either. Just then he messaged her, said he was working late, told her not to wait. She didn't even need to guess. She knew exactly where he was. That's when a bold plan began to form. Meanwhile, her mother-in-law had been admitted to the hospital and finally woke up. She found her daughter-in-law sitting quietly by her side, watching. It had been half a year since she last visited. But the older woman wasn't shocked. She already knew her son had another woman. Calmly, she told her, "Turn a blind eye. Men cheat, it's nothing new. Just endure it." But when the daughter-in-law said, "She's pregnant," the mother-in-law's face changed. Now it was serious. She promised she would handle it, that she wouldn't let her son destroy the family, just like his father had. She asked her to be more forgiving. That only enraged the daughter-in-law more. "He secretly drained our accounts. Even our son's insurance money. And you want me to forgive that?" she said coldly. "I'll divorce him, and leave him with nothing." The mother-in-law snapped. "You don't understand my son. He's caught in the middle. Can't you give him a little grace?" But the daughter-in-law wasn't moved. "Is it my fault he cheated? Should I raise a child in a broken home just to protect your son?" She thought her mother-in-law simply wanted her to stay married. What she didn't know was that the mother-in-law's regrets ran much deeper. Her son had become just like his father. The next day, the old woman died in her hospital bed. The son wailed like a heartbroken child. He looked shattered, like a man carrying grief on his shoulders. His wife, however, remained calm as she arranged the funeral. He was a mess, hair disheveled, eyes sunken. She handed him a mirror and said gently, "Fix yourself. It's not respectful to greet mourners like this." Soon, the chairman and his family arrived. Her husband instantly straightened up, fixing his collar and hair. Even the son noticed. The man was trying far too hard, licking their shoes like a desperate dog. The wife didn't speak. She watched silently, but inside she was seething. She could see through every move. He wasn't mourning. He was scheming, still trying to impress the chairman. She couldn't take it anymore. Suddenly, the man's phone rang. He glanced around nervously, then quickly slipped away toward a quiet corner, unaware that his wife saw everything. More and more guests arrived to pay their respects, but only the son remained behind, confused and alone. He turned to his older brother's best friend. "Where's Dad?" The friend searched every hallway, but the man had vanished. His phone went unanswered. Meanwhile, the wife had followed him. She trailed him all the way to the parking lot. What she didn't expect was the car, shaking violently. Her son's best friend had followed too. When he caught sight of the same thing, he said nothing. He'd suspected for a long time. And so had she. But she was too busy, too wounded, to confront it yet. Later, the son finished his mother's funeral arrangements. He looked pale but determined, a dutiful child doing what his father should have done. The wife looked at the grave, thinking bitterly, "Are you proud of your son? Is this how you wanted him to send you off?" Just as the family began to leave, she stopped walking. Her chest tightened, but she didn't look back. She was afraid her mother-in-law's soul hadn't found peace. That night, she dressed in a silk nightgown, radiant and seductive. She slipped under the covers beside her husband. He acted affectionate, wrapping an arm around her, afraid she might suspect something. She played along, pretending she still wanted him. But inside, she was repulsed. Before dawn, she ran into her husband's accountant, Tasik. He looked troubled. "Rough night?" he asked gently. He'd seen what happened in the parking lot. She brushed it off, saying it was nothing, just gossip. "The neighbors are talking," she muttered bitterly. Seeing her so defeated, Tasik offered his help. But she gave a tired smile and declined. All men are the same, she thought, and walked away. The next day, she was deep in thought, plotting her revenge, when a nurse appeared with a bouquet. "Your husband's so romantic," she smiled. The wife glanced at the card. It read, "I'll always love you." But it wasn't from her husband. It was from Tasik. Confused, she confronted him. He simply said, "Stop breaking yourself to fix someone who doesn't care." And somehow, that snapped her out of it. The next morning, she woke up early and did her makeup, wore her best dress. When her husband saw her, he couldn't stop staring. Step 1. Complete. Step 2. She met Tasik for a casual appointment. At first, it was small talk, drinks, a few laughs, venting about her sorry excuse of a husband. But as the evening went on and the wine kept pouring, the tension changed. And then, Tasik finally showed his true intentions. He pulled out a hotel room keycard he'd already prepared, silently implying, "You can do to your husband what he did to you." The woman didn't respond, but her silence was answer enough. Tasik took it as a green light and went ahead to prepare the room. Sure enough, moments later, she followed. She opened the door, knowing that once she stepped inside, there would be no turning back. But this wasn't just about revenge. She had a deeper plan, one that would hit 3 targets at once. She said nothing, just unbuckled her belt, and took the initiative. Back home, her husband was completely unaware. Meanwhile, Tasik was still basking in the afterglow, unaware that the woman was just getting started. She leaned closer and asked, "Should we tell your wife about us?" Startled, Tasik panicked. He thought this was just about getting back at her cheating husband. "Leave my wife out of it," he stammered. But her tone sharpened. She threatened to expose him unless he gave her access to her husband's company records. Only then did he realize he was being used. The woman didn't flinch. "Yes," she said bluntly. But what she didn't know was that Tasik wasn't a good man either. Before she could even get comfortable at home, Tasik showed up uninvited. She hadn't expected him to be so bold. Meanwhile, her husband was busy taking a phone call. The woman confronted Tasik. "What do you want?" Tasik, catching on, guessed her endgame. "You're not just preparing for divorce. You want to leave him penniless." Now that her plan was exposed, the woman wanted to back out. But Tasik grabbed her hand. "His company is a facade. He moved everything to a personal account. Including the death benefit, it's over 300 million. She gasped. Her goal was finally within reach. But Tasik wasn't done. "You're not walking away just yet." She realized too late, she was tangled with a wolf. As her husband came downstairs, she wrestled free, trying not to make a scene. But her husband noticed something. He didn't speak. Just stored it away in silence. Later that night, when his wife went to the bathroom, he tried to peek at her phone. But he didn't know the password. In the end, he gave up, still suspicious. The next day, Tasik delivered news that shattered her. She could no longer hold back. So she sweetly invited her husband to dinner, an ambush in disguise. He felt uneasy, sensing something off. She took him to a lavish house. He tried to stop her, but it was too late. A familiar woman greeted them. It was his doctor. She welcomed them warmly, offering wine, but it wasn't just a drink. It was a veiled warning. She praised the home's decor, but the husband's instincts screamed danger. The wife slipped upstairs. Her husband followed. He saw her reaching for something, and instinctively stopped her. But that voice, the voice of his daughter, rang out from the next room. In that moment, everything clicked. He stormed out with Jean, his face twisted with rage. The wife let go of the item in her hand, exactly as planned. The husband was stunned, lost for words. But the wife spoke to herself. "You shouldn't touch what doesn't belong to you." Jean heard it, and understood. They were invited to stay for dinner. But the hostess's smile vanished when she saw broken shards on the floor. The wife simply said, "My hand slipped." No guilt. No fear. Not anymore. Shanine was furious. She glared at the man, eyes burning with betrayal, but he stood there like a coward, silent, shrinking, saying nothing. At the dinner table, the tension became unbearable. The wife couldn't keep quiet anymore. She blurted out one sentence, and that single moment spiraled everything out of control, shattering even her own life. She had thanked the chairman for investing in her husband's company and said, "She shares the same vision as your daughter." The chairman was puzzled. He'd never heard anything about a daughter investing. He and Madam exchanged glances. Trying to keep the mood light, the Madam gently asked, "Is something bothering you today?" The wife suddenly spoke up, sharp and direct. "My husband's soul has been stolen." Shanine's heart clenched. The woman didn't stop. She turned to the wife and asked, "Are you planning to have a baby with my husband?" The chairman's face was blank, but the tension was thick in the air. Turning to her husband, she continued, "What exactly did you say to convince them to invest?" The husband tried to respond, but every word just made things worse, each explanation sounding more like an excuse. Shanine felt a chill go down her spine as she saw him subtly shake his head, trying to signal her to stay quiet. Her anger exploded. She grabbed a wine bottle and smashed it against the floor. The damage was done. The man knew he was too late. He ran after his wife as she stormed out. "Are you satisfied now after all this?" he asked breathlessly. His wife turned to him, her voice ice cold. "Divorce." But she didn't even raise her voice. Calmly, she said, "I was impulsive too. That's why I slept with your good brother, Tasik." He froze. The words cut like a blade. He hadn't expected her to go that far, to sink so low, just to get revenge. "You're not well," he said, trembling. "I'll have to send you to a psychiatrist." His last desperate attempt, to stop her from divorcing him. The next day, the man went to the director and learned that even if his subordinate got divorced, it wouldn't affect medical ethics. He did this only because he couldn't let go of his son. Realizing this, the wife was forced to go to her son's school. Ignoring the fact that he was still in class, she took him away. Her husband, knowing her unstable behavior, tried to stop her, but he was too late. He then tracked his son's phone location and drove there in a hurry. But the farther he drove, the stranger he felt. This road only led to the beach. His son also sensed something was wrong. When he tried to use his phone to call his father, his mother snatched it and threw it away. The mother ignored her son's emotions entirely. She dragged him to the beach, trying to reconnect. Holding his hand, she pleaded, "We'll be together, just the two of us, for the rest of our lives." But something was off. The boy's expression was different. "Dad left you, not me," he said coldly. Thinking her son just needed comfort, she continued softly, "We don't need your father to be happy." But her son pulled away. He didn't want to live with her. She hadn't realized she had raised someone who now saw her as the villain. Then the truth came out. "Because you were always busy," he said. "Dad was the one who stayed with me every day." No matter how the mother tried to explain, the boy insisted. He wanted to go find his father. Watching her son walk away, the mother's mind collapsed. Now panicked, the boy begged to live with his father. The mother held him tightly and threatened, "If you say that again, we'll die together." At the same time, the husband received a call from his wife. She simply asked him to come home. Once home, he grabbed his wife by the hair, furious. "How could you do this to your own son?" he shouted over and over again. But his wife wasn't scared. Instead, she fanned the flames, screaming, "It's your fault our son ended up like this." To the husband, she had completely lost her mind. Enraged, he choked her. This kind of mother, he thought, didn't deserve to live. And then came the final blow. The wife confessed she had pushed their son into the sea. The man snapped. But soon, the son returned. Seeing his mother lying motionless on the ground, his heart clenched in pain. The father, however, felt a moment of relief. His son was alive. But the boy looked at him with fear and shouted, "Get out." Only then did the man realize, it was all a setup. His wife had planned everything. Soon after, she got the divorce papers she wanted. Her face was scarred, but to her, it was worth it. Now that the man had lost everything, his former lover came to him and warned, "Put out the cigarette, it's bad for the baby." Hearing that she was pregnant, the man felt he still had hope. Maybe God had shut a door on his wife, but opened a window for him. She hugged him tightly and swore to herself that she would prove her worth, without her husband. She and her son lived a quiet but peaceful life. If this were the end, perhaps the wounds could heal. But some people can't let go. 2 years later, the wife received an invitation. Her ex-husband's new family had a baby girl. She knew he was up to something again. That same day, it was time for him to visit his son. As school ended, the boy saw his father waiting outside. He had become a successful producer and now drove a luxury car. But the boy didn't care. He didn't like him at all. The father's goal was simple, win his son back. He insisted he changed and even brought his son a baseball, the same one he used to love. That night, the mother casually asked her son, "How about a trip this weekend? Just the two of us?" But the boy replied flatly, "I already have plans with a classmate." But then the weekend came. Though the man had remarried, there was still so much noise and celebration in his new home. His new wife, once just a lover, was now official. The ex-wife had tried to move on, but her heart was heavy. Suddenly, she received a message from him. Her face fell. Her son had actually gone to his father's wedding. Furious, she gripped her phone. But the boy hadn't gone for the wedding. He just wanted a famous baseball player's autograph. Still, the father seized the chance to win him over. As he led his son upstairs, the new wife watched, unhappy. She could see the boy would always be a wedge between them. Inside the room, the father smiled and said, "This will be your room." The son wanted to speak, but stopped. His stepmother was standing silently by the door. The boy sensed something wasn't right. When he asked about the room, the father brushed it off. But the moment he stepped out, his new wife made it clear, she didn't like it. The father later noticed something. His son had left all the gifts behind. He said nothing, but it stung. That night, mother and son sat at the table, quietly eating dinner. Suddenly, a loud crash. The window shattered. A heavy rock flew through, landing with a thud. When the panic subsided, the mother began cleaning the mess. Then, the doorbell rang. She heard her ex-husband had come by to deliver something for their son. As the mother hesitated to open the door, her son rushed over and called out, "I was the one who called Dad." The poor boy didn't know, it was all part of his father's setup. Still, the man acted like a responsible adult, even helping fix the broken window. Seeing his son's trust slowly returning, the man suggested, "This place doesn't feel safe. Why not let him stay with me for a while?" But the ex-wife shut him down immediately. "He's safe here. Now leave." That single statement stuck with the man. He wouldn't let it go. But peace didn't last. Days later, a threatening letter arrived. Just a few chilling words, but it was enough to shake her. Worried, she wanted to take her son to school herself. But something was wrong. He wasn't heading to school. So she quietly followed him. To her shock, the boy entered a hospital. Not just any ward, a special psychiatric unit. Her heart pounded. The son didn't know she was behind him. A coworker greeted him kindly. "Calm down. It's just a counseling session." But the mother snapped. "You let him attend therapy without a guardian? He's a minor." The coworker stood speechless. The mother watched in silence as her son walked out, unaware she'd been there. In truth, ever since the day he scratched his stepmother's car, the boy had been under observation. A psychiatrist at the hospital saw the signs clearly. This child's heart was deeply troubled. From that day forward, the father decided to rescue his son himself. Later, the mother learned from a coworker. The divorce hurt him more than either of you realized. He's stuck between two people, unable to breathe. The coworker gently advised, "Don't stand in his way anymore. Let things flow naturally." The next day, she let go. She didn't interfere when her son said he wanted to go to his father's house. But what she didn't see coming was her ex-husband's subtle manipulation. At dinner, the father tried to act warm, telling his son to eat more. He smiled and said, "Look at your little sister, she's eating so well today. It's all thanks to her big brother." The boy said nothing, but kept eating quietly. His father noticed this silent acceptance. Meanwhile, the woman, his new wife, picked up on the awkward air. She dismissed her husband from the table and turned to the boy. "I know I broke your family," she said gently, "but I truly love your father. And your father loves you. That's why I'll treat you like my own son, because your happiness is his." Just then, the baby sister dropped her spoon. Without a word, the boy picked it up and handed it to her. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. At that moment, the man felt a rush of relief. But far away, the boy's mother sat alone. And though her heart ached, she didn't want to burden her son anymore. So she let him choose for himself. Suddenly, she caught a glimpse of her son. But when she saw someone else had taken her place in his life, her heart shattered. Seeing the genuine smile on his face, she paused. He looked happy. When she returned home, she silently began to pack her things. Without her, her son still smiled. But what she didn't know, it was all just a facade. Meanwhile, the man had returned home and noticed a strange bag in the locker room. Curious, he opened it, and what he saw inside made his blood run cold. He stormed into the room, shouting at his lover. She said nothing. But the son, who was studying nearby, overheard everything. The father turned to his lover, furious. "Did you plan this whole thing yourself? Bringing my son here, just to send him abroad?" The lover tried to defend herself. Sending him abroad is for his future. But in the man's eyes, it wasn't concern, it was betrayal. The next day, his stepmother and little sister still treated him kindly. He wanted to believe it was sincere. But deep inside he knew, it was all a lie. That night, his stepmother even tried to bond with him. She cheerfully told him, "My parents have invited you to dinner." During the meal, everything seemed normal, until a sudden cry came from upstairs. It was the little girl. She turned in rage toward the boy. "What did you do to her?" The babysitter came rushing in, explaining. "I just stepped into the kitchen for a moment. Then she started crying." The stepmother snapped. "You abused my daughter. She was just playing. I didn't touch her." But in the next second, his father struck him across the face. That blow lit a fire in the boy's chest. The man, now trying to act calm, said, "Stop being dramatic." But the boy could barely breathe through the pain. Later, the man tried to reassure his ex-wife. "I'll treat him well. That was just a mistake. I lost my temper." But she had no patience left. "You call that kindness? You hit your son just to please your new wife. You didn't even let him speak before blaming him, again. The man drowned his guilt in glass after glass of wine. Meanwhile, the son quietly packed his things. He was ready now. He would leave, with his mother for good. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. The boy instinctively felt it might be his father, and he was right. The man had come to apologize. But before he could say a word, the ex-wife stepped forward. The son stood there, watching with cold, empty eyes. He said nothing. The father tried again, offering apologies, desperate for a response. But the boy cut him off, his voice flat. "If you don't leave now, I'll call the police." Turning on his ex-wife, he grabbed her by the arm and dragged her outside. This was all your plan, wasn't it? What he didn't realize was that his son had already decided. He was afraid of him. And he had already begged his mother to take him far away. The woman knew now, this wasn't a man she could reason with. Only power would stop him. She went straight to a black luxury car parked nearby. "Take me to your master, the chairman," her ex-husband's powerful father-in-law. Once there, she spoke plainly. "Are you truly satisfied with your daughter's husband?" The old man sighed, visibly troubled. "Honestly, no. That was the cue she needed." "Then listen closely. A good girl's future is being destroyed by him." Every word was chosen carefully. Although she was no longer married to him, her family had suffered years of harassment, all under the excuse of doing it for the kids. "If you really think he can make your daughter happy, I have nothing more to say. But don't forget, his arrogance comes from your protection." The next day, everything seemed normal. The man got dressed, kissed his lover goodbye, and left for work. He didn't notice her silence. He walked into the office, furious. He shouted at his secretary. He had a meeting with a client. When he went to pay the bill, his card failed. He assumed it had been demagnetized. He got a new one, still didn't work. Luckily, he had some cash on hand. But something felt off. Back at the office, he demanded answers. "Why is my card frozen?" The secretary didn't flinch. "Get lost. If you want to see your daughter one last time, you'd better go home." The house, emptied out. Closets bare. He tried to stop them, but it was useless. It was already over. The order had come from his father-in-law himself. Everything had been packed for him, including his own suitcase. The old man turned to him and said, "Get lost." He was stunned by the sudden shift in fate. And when his father-in-law coldly ordered the secretary to take the car away, he finally reacted. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice shaky. The old man didn't answer, just glared at him with fury boiling beneath his calm expression. He raced to find her, pleading, begging, but she was done. She'd already made up her mind. He made one last desperate attempt to hold her back. It was useless. He never imagined that the woman he once lived with could become so cold, so heartless, as if he were nothing to her now. Then, like a beam of light in darkness, a thought struck him. His son. At least he still had his son. The boy had already turned away from him, completely. He deleted every photo they ever took together. Suddenly, someone approached. Could it be his wife? His heart raced, but when he saw who it was, fury overtook him. He stormed toward the car, burning with emotion. She sighed. He was still the same. He hadn't changed. Not even now. A month passed. One day, the man found his son again. But the boy turned away in silence. His ex-wife, seeing the broken man he had become, gently asked her son to speak. Call him, father. But the boy's lips wouldn't move. He couldn't say the word. Not to him. Maybe the man had truly reflected during that time. He looked at his son, eyes full of regret. Cherish the ones around you, he whispered. Don't be like me. Don't wait until they're gone. His son said nothing. I was wrong, the man choked out. But it's too late. I won't bother you anymore. They didn't know what he meant by that. Maybe he had nothing left to live for. The next moment, he ran headfirst into a speeding truck. And the screen fades to black.